talk about, and we're gonna go through just a few things about how to get the job, how to do your job interview and be successful, because I think it should not be a secret, right? We worry about job interviews, we're like, oh my God, I hope I get it. No, you should know that you're gonna get the job. So we're gonna talk about a few things that will help you with that. So we're gonna get some introductions. We're gonna talk about perception, because it's huge in job interviews. And then we're gonna talk about the format for how you answer interview questions. And then we're literally going to go through the interview questions that you have there, which is probably the most effective thing you can do. So that's why there's space there. I give them to you printed out so you can actually write your answers down. Because most of the time for job interviews, we are not thinking about what our answers to these questions should be before we go to the interview. We're usually in the interview and go, okay, let me think of my answer. It should not be that way. We should absolutely not have that problem. You should know before you go into an interview what those questions are gonna be and how you should answer them. So we're gonna go through those. And then we'll do some practice interviews just to give you a chance to answer your questions. All right? So we just did those. You don't need to worry about that this week. So the first thing I always talk about with job interviews is talking about things that you're nervous about, because there is no more thing to be nervous about than a job interview. You don't know the people, you don't know what to expect, you really need the job. There's a lot of things happening there. So we are always so nervous. So I always talk about things that will help you before you go to the job interview and help you with being nervous, because being nervous in a job interview is bad for you. It doesn't make you look good, because the whole point of you going in there is to get the job, right? And if you look calm, collected, well prepared, and you are gonna nail it, then absolutely that goes a lot longer and a lot farther than other people. So the first thing I say is you gotta practice. We think job interviews are not, like, you can't prepare for them. You absolutely can prepare for a job interview. It should not be a surprise to you. They might ask you some questions that are kind of creative sometimes, but the most popular job interview questions are literally sitting right before you, and those are peer assessed, so they come from a website called Glassdoor. And that's people submitting the questions they were asked in their job interview. And Glassdoor updates this every year or so, and so they print out the top 50 job interview questions. So even if the question that they ask you is not in those questions, you know your answers to those questions, and more than likely, one of your answers will apply to what their question is. So you can still use an answer you've prepared, so you just have to practice and know what those things are. The next thing I talk about is preparation, and that is huge. It's different from practicing your answers to your interview questions. Preparation has to do with, what am I gonna wear? Did I print out a copy of my resume? Do I know where the building is? Do I know how to get there? What's parking like? Having all of those things well, ahead of time is really helpful, because if you wait until the last minute for those on the morning, the more things that are what ifs that could go wrong will just throw you off your game. And you're walking in there going, I got this is my job. So you wanna have yourself well prepared. So have all those things ready, know where everything is. All that stuff will really be helpful, so to help you be less nervous. I always remind people to breathe. That feels silly to tell you to breathe, but you need to be able to breathe. And that's because when we get nervous, our breathing speeds up, or we hold our breath. And both of those things actually make us more nervous. And so we need to make sure that we're breathing regularly and calmly. So before you even enter the building where your job interview is, you're gonna take a moment, just pause. You're gonna inhale through your nose and exhale out your mouth. And you're gonna pick a count in your head. So like a count of 3 is the lowest number you should pick. So you're gonna think, I'm gonna count in my head. I'm gonna inhale for 3 and exhale for 3. Do it a few times. It does a few things for you. One, it regulates your breathing, it calms you down, it makes it so you can do it, but also it gets your brain it shuts off the craziness of what your brain is thinking about for just a few minutes, because all you're thinking about is breathing, and you need to be able to have that to center yourself and focus. If you don't, then you're still all over the place when you go in and talk to the people who are interviewing you. And you don't want that. So you take a moment, breathe before you even come into the building. And even if you're sitting down waiting for them to come, that's a good opportunity to just do some breathing. Doesn't have to be a big deal. Nobody has to know. I'm just calming myself down, recentering, focusing myself on like, all right, I got this. Okay, we're good. Don't be like me. I always say you gotta arrive early. For job interviews, you need to come early. I would say 10 minutes early is a really good sign. So put it in your calendar. If your job interview's at 9, you need to be there at 8:50. And that's because you wanna make sure you have time to park, you wanna get in, you wanna talk to the person who's the admin at the front. you need to be really nice to that person. It's really important because they will ask that person how you were when you came in. So be nice to that person. And most people don't realize it, but it's the admin person who runs the building. So it's not the CEO, it's not that person, it's whoever their admin is, the person sitting at that front desk, yet that person runs and knows everything. So it's important that you're super nice to that person and polite. Introduce yourself. Hello, I'm here for my interview. They're the people who are gonna help you out, and sit there. And you're not gonna be on your phone. You're not gonna be like looking at social media. You're gonna sit there, you're gonna have your materials ready, and you're gonna be patient and smile, because that's what they're looking for, right? That's because the goal is, hey, and you should be confident in this because you're like, look, this is my job to take. All these other people could go home. This is my job. So I'm sitting here very confident. I'm just breathing. That's why I'm here early. All those things, right? It's important. I always say smiling is important. We don't realize that smiling actually makes us feel better. So it makes us feel good inside when we smile, because when we feel good inside, we smile. So what happens is if we do the inverse of it, it actually works. It makes us feel good. But also what happens when you smile at people?
Like seeing like as a right person, I guess?
Yes, that's true, because you look friendly and approachable. That's good. What else happens when you smile at people?
Just like, it's contagious.
It is contagious, right? You smile at people, they smile back at you. And I want to be in a room with smiling interviewers, right? I want to be there where people are happy and pleasant, and I want to be happy and pleasant. And so that is contagious. So I'm going to walk in with that energy. I'm going to smile to help myself be confident, but I'm also going to smile so they smile back at me, even if they're just meant to be mean and angry, which they're usually not. But I'm going to smile at them, and they're going to smile back at me, and that's going to help me feel a little bit better. So it's always good to have. I put keep going. A lot of times we mess up and we draw attention to our mistakes. Like, oh, I didn't mean to say that. I'm sorry. Can I do it again? We don't know your answers. Those of us sitting on the other side of the table, we have no clue what you're going to say. So if you made a mistake on what you planned to say or how you said it, just keep going. Don't tell us. Don't ever draw attention to your mistakes. Most of the time, people don't know you've made a mistake until you tell them, right? But we're so used to being in the world of like academia, where our professors are grading us and looking for those mistakes, that we think that everybody knows our mistakes, so we have to apologize for them. They don't know your mistakes. They have no idea what you're gonna say. And the way they do, especially like lower level interviews these days, they will often do them in panels with groups. And so if you're on a panel, there's a panel of people interviewing you, and there's a group of people in the audience, nobody has any idea what you were gonna say. You're there to tell all those other people who are interviewing with you that they can go home, because this job is yours. So you're gonna answer confidently, and if you made a mistake on what you said, just keep going. Don't draw attention to it, because whatever you said was the right thing. It's what you meant to say. Don't ever bring attention to it, right? I put be yourself. It's really important because you need to know if you get a job interview, that means you're qualified for the job. We don't waste our time interviewing people who are not qualified. So if you got into the interview, that means you're qualified. So this job is absolutely yours for the taking. So it's great. But what they're looking for a lot of times in the interview is, can I work with this person? Is this person the right person for the job for us? And what you can do in that is being yourself. Allow your personality to shine through. That also will allow you to be more comfortable and more confident. If you're not trying to be somebody else or act like someone else, just being yourself and being confident in that is going to help you be less nervous. And it also allows them to see who you really are and see, okay, we could really work with this person. They have the skills we need. We like them as a person. That's really important. Do not try to like pretend to be something else. The most important thing, honestly, up here is positive thinking. Because whether you think you can get the job or whether you think you cannot, you're right. And most of the time, these are mental games. Going in for a job interview is literally a mental game. So I'm prepared mentally for this. This is my job. I'm gonna walk in here doing the best that I can. I'm gonna look the best that I can. This is my job. And if I come in with that confidence, then I'm more likely to get the job, right? There might be some things that maybe not, right? There have been times when I've gone in for job interviews and I didn't get the job. And I do interviews really well, like I interview well. But what I've gotten is some of those interviews where I'm like, oh, I didn't get the job. They will contact me afterwards and go, we thought you were amazing, which doesn't happen, right? This is not something that happens in job interviews. Don't expect for them to contact you. That's not what happens. They will contact you if you get the job. If you don't get the job, you might get an email that says, sorry, you didn't get the job. They're not gonna email you or call you or anything like that. But some of the times I haven't gotten jobs, they've called me or emailed me and said, oh my God, we really thought you were fantastic and we wanted to hire you just because we love you and we think you're amazing, but this position was not the right position for you, and we are waiting for a position to open in our company that would be perfect for you because we really do want to have you work for our company. This one was just not, this wasn't the right position for you, but we love you and think you'd be great here. So we have something coming up soon. We hope you'll apply for it or keep an eye out, which is fantastic. Who gets that? Like, I don't expect to get that, but it has happened to me more times than I expect because you being positive, you're going in, you're doing all these things, you nailed that job interview. If you don't get the job, it's not because you weren't amazing. It's usually because there's something in the position that maybe they found somebody else who was perfect, or maybe they're like, you were qualified, but we'd love for you to be something else. Don't ever get offended by that. But always go in positive thinking. You are going in, this is my job, I've got this, everybody else is gonna go home, I'm gonna be my own cheerleader. This is great. You have to pump yourself up because that narrative that you're playing in your head over and over and over again is what's gonna get you the job. So you need to make sure you feel that way. All right, I talk about this a lot in all of my classes and all of my training sessions. It's this idea that perception is truth. So the perception that you put forth is what people will believe. We don't like that idea. We don't like that people judge a book by its cover. We don't like that people make assumptions about us and that's just what they know. And we hate that because you're like, that's not who I really am. But in a job interview, they have no other way. You only get that small, brief period of time. So you are going to be the person who crafts the perception of what they think about you. Because we're not gonna let them just assume certain things. No, we're going to create what they think about us. We don't want them to be like, oh, we don't like that person because of this. Well, whatever you present is what they're gonna believe. We are the crafters of that. So let's talk about what we can do to help that. If at any time you have questions, feel free to just stop me because I'll just keep going unless you ask a question. So feel free to ask. So we talked about perception, right? It's what people think. So we want to think that we are a credible candidate. We want them to believe that about us. So we're going to do a few things. One, we're going to show them how competent we are. Okay. So we're going to say we're going to talk about our answers in depth. We're going to have really well prepared answers. We're going to talk about our experience and our expertise. This is really important because remember, if you came into the interview and you got one, that means you are qualified for the job. And you need to be able to talk about how qualified you are. It's bragging, but it's good bragging because this is the chance when you are supposed to brag. So make sure you know all of your accomplishments, you know all the things that you're good at when you walk into the job interview. And you're going to answer your questions well so that it shows them that you are a competent person. Because competence is what they think you know about your area of expertise or the job that you're applying for. So we want to show them that we are competent. That's going to be really important. And the next one that adds this is character, right? So the two of those together equal your credibility. Character is what they think about you as a person, if they like or respect you. So we're going to do things that show our character and show them that we're a person that's likable. We're going to smile. We're going to come in prepared. We're going to be early. We're going to dress our best. What that looks like is different for every person. So you want to wear the best that you have, which is why in your preparation, you're going to try on your outfit before you go. You're going to make sure it's ironed and cleaned and ready to go, and that you can actually still fit it and it's comfortable. You don't want things that make a lot of noise, right? So I purposely wore a suit today because this is what I wear when I go to job interviews. This is the best that I have in my wardrobe. Now, do I wear different shirts? Yes, absolutely. But I'm gonna put on a suit. Do you have to wear a suit? No. Don't go out and buy a suit if you don't have one. Wear the best that you have. You wanna put your best foot forward and allow it to show who you are as a person, right? You should get as close to business attire as possible because that shows that you come in. And I wear a suit because when I go to interviews, especially if it's not an academic interview, people are not in suits. They don't come in suits. But I'm wearing my suit because I'm gonna go, oh, you didn't? Okay, great, this is my job. Thank you so much, have a great day, right? Because I'm gonna come in and give them the perception that I am the person who wants this job. That's why I'm coming early, that's why I'm wearing my best, that's why I have my resume and extra copies and I've prepared and I've practiced. That's the character I wanna show them. And I'm smiling because I'm happy to be here. I'm grateful you decided to interview me. Why? Because I wanna show you how amazing I am. And that's always your mindset when you walk into an interview. I look like I'm amazing, I feel like I'm amazing, I know I'm amazing, so I'm here to tell you how amazing I am. Very, very important. And that is always what you tell yourself. Doesn't matter if you don't think you're amazing, you're going to tell yourself you're amazing because you are. You You absolutely are, right? You are in control of the perception they have of you. You control this. You create that narrative for them. So when you walk in, they get to see that. Everything you say, everything you do should be building their perception of you in the way that you want them to. You're going to do all those things. So that's why we prepare ahead of time. Questions so far? All right. So let's talk about how you answer interview questions, because you're going to answer them like a pro. And when you do this format and you answer them this way, it means that your answers are going to stick out from the other people who are being interviewed. And the reason we do it this way is because when they interview people, they basically just have a stack of applications or resumes. And at the end, when they go through and look through the stack, we are looking for ways to make ourselves stand out. And one of the ways we're going to do that is answer our interview questions this way, because other people don't. And it means that makes them more forgettable. You want to be memorable. You want them to be looking through that stack of resumes and going, yes, that person, they're great. I want that candidate. They told us that great story about that job that they had, or that club they were in at school. Yes, that person, they are the right candidate. We remember them. Because the rest of the people, they're going to flip through and go, who is this again? We don't want to be that person. We want to stand out. So if you put these things out here in the bottom, but remember, if you get an interview, you are qualified for the job. Keep that in mind. Don't waste time interviewing people who are not qualified for the job. So always remember that. I'm qualified. I'm just here to show you that. Next, brag about yourself. You have to be willing to talk about your accomplishments and how well you did them. So often we take this mindset, people of color, people who are first-generation college students, maybe our parents did not have this idea. We have this concept that bragging or being proud of ourselves is a bad thing. And I get it, right? We're not supposed to be proud. Like, pride is bad. You're not supposed to be a proud person. It's shameful, right? But in a job interview, that's how you don't get the job. In a job interview, it's not about being honest, right? That's the time when you need to talk about, I am awesome. That's exactly what we're gonna do for that. Because if you don't show them how amazing you are, the perception is you're not. Because you didn't tell us. Remember, they don't know you. This is their opportunity. This is the opportunity for you to tell them everything you want them to know for you to get the job. So you have to do that in the interview. If you don't brag about yourself, they don't know. And you'll go, but I could have really done this job. But did you tell them about that in the interview? Did you show them that? No, I didn't want to be proud. I didn't want to be prideful. This isn't prideful. This is me trying to get a job. So I'm going to tell you how amazing I am. Always brag about yourself. Know those things important. And I'm going to show you in our interview questions which questions are questions where you can brag about yourself and which questions are like have other intentions. I like to talk about the intentions behind job interview questions because they help you understand how to answer them. So we'll talk about those. Because there are questions on there that are literally just for you to brag about yourself. Literally, that's all they do, okay? Lastly on here, I put know your answers before the interview and practice. Write them down, right? If you have these, please write down your answers so you can practice. The day before, 2 days before, practice your interview, your answers, because they're going to give you that upper hand because you know the answers. It's not a surprise. They might throw a curveball at you and go, ooh, I didn't know that question. But if you know that it's similar to an answer that you've already prepared from one of these questions, you can give that answer in its place and it will totally cross-apply. But you have to be prepared to practice. All right, so here's how we're gonna answer our questions. The first thing you're going to do is repeat the question. Why would I repeat the question? Any thoughts?
Maybe to show like you understand the question.
Yep, show that I understand. What else? Any other reasons why? So I want to make sure I understood it. I want to let them know I was listening to the question because I will tell you, half the time people answer the wrong question. They answer the wrong question. You gave me an answer to a question that I didn't even ask. I'm like, oh, okay. And if I think you're a good candidate, I will ask you to answer the correct question. I will redirect you. But I'm a good interviewer. That's something that I'm good at doing. So I might redirect you because I realize you didn't answer the question correctly because you didn't hear it. So I might say, hey, can you read through this? What about this? Then I'll redirect you. Oftentimes you'll have somebody who's interviewing you, particularly for things like part-time jobs or holiday jobs and seasonal positions, things like that, when you're looking at what I would call your college jobs, right? Most of us in college don't work our permanent jobs forever. So when you're on those interviews, those people who are interviewing you are not interview people who know how to interview candidates. They're like a manager who got dragged into this. They're not an HR, they're not an expert, so they're not gonna redirect you if you answer the question wrong. They're just gonna be like, they answered the question wrong and move on. So make sure you repeat the question to make sure you heard the question correctly. And it also buys you some time to come up with your answer, right? So I'm giving myself a couple things, right? So what's the first question on there? What are your strengths, right? This is a really wonderful question. Well, it's in detail. So I'm gonna go with, I think it's down almost number 50, honestly. It's why do you want this job? It's on there somewhere. And I'm surprised that it's so far down, because I looked at the list recently. That usually is in the top, 5.
What's in the 3?
What is it, number 3? Oh yeah, why are you interested in working for? That's it, but they ask that question a number of ways, right? So they'll ask you, why do you want this job, things like that. So we'll take that one. So I'm gonna repeat the question, why do I want this job, right? Then I'm gonna answer it with a 1-sentence answer. Like, this is the answer to my question, right? Why do I want this job? I want this job because I really enjoy helping students fulfill their potential and grow. It's my favorite thing to do, and it's what I've done for the entirety of my professional career. Then I'm going to provide an example to support it. Where am I getting this example from? I'm gonna get this example from a previous job that I've had. That's always your first place. I'm gonna pull examples from jobs. Why? Because this is a job interview, so they want to know what I'm like in the workplace. So I'm gonna provide an example from a previous job that I've had. What if you've never had a job before? Okay, volunteer positions, right? If you have a volunteer position, if you had an internship, if you did some work on school and you were in a club or an organization, you wanna pull from that. If you don't have that, or like extracurricular activities, if you were on a sports team or something like that. If you don't have any of those, then you can use an example from school, like a class, an interaction with a professor or something like that. The last thing you want to do is, if you do not have answers or support, right, examples from any of those areas, the very bottom is to use something from your personal life. And the reason I say that is the last place to go is, one, you want to always have an example, because if you don't have an example, they will not remember your answer to the question. And we want to show them that what you just said was true, right? So you're looking for that example. But if you use something from your personal life, that means they can use that to evaluate you. And your personal life has no bearing on if you can do this job or not. They're not allowed to ask you legally any questions about your personal life. They can't ask you questions about where you live, how many people are in your family, if you have kids, if you're married, if you are a member of the LGBTQ community. Like, they cannot ask you any of those things. That is protected information. And so you volunteering that information now means they can use it to evaluate you. And we don't need to give them anything, because my personal life has no bearing on if I'm gonna be successful at this job or not. I'm gonna be successful because of all the other things I've done. So I'm not gonna give you any personal information. And so that's really important. That's why your examples need to come from work, extracurricular or activities at school, then school, very bottom, personal information. I am not giving them any personal details about me. Also, my employer is not my friend. You're my boss, you're my job. We might become friends later on at some point, but even still, that's still first, you're my boss, first and foremost. Friends after that. I'm not giving you my personal life at all, okay? And then I'm gonna repeat the question, right? I'm gonna restate it at the end, and I'm gonna say, and that's why I think I'm the person, and that's why I want the job, right? So let me give you an example. So I said, why do I want this job? Well, I want this job because I really love helping students reach their full potential and grow and be successful after they graduate from college. For example, one of my favorite students of all time is a student named Tyler Kenlock. Tyler was an aeronautical engineering major. I do not teach aeronautical engineering. That is not my area of expertise. I was his speech and debate coach, and I was very fortunate to have Tyler the entire 4 years that he was a student with me. One thing that Tyler and I did every year was work on how he would do his interviews for his internships and how he would approach those internships. And very fortunately, every single summer, Tyler nailed the internship that he was applying for. And when he finished his college degree, he actually got a job offer from one of those summer internships. It was an internship he had before his junior year. He loved working for that company. He thought it was great. They thought he was wonderful. They offered him a position. I love seeing that. I love seeing that students that I've worked with and helped actually be successful and go on to do the things that they want to do and be successful in life. And that is why I think I'd be a good candidate and why I really want this job. Just like that. Also, the reason why we restate the question is because we also often don't know when to end a question. We don't know how to end the end of a question. You provided your answer and you're like, how do I wrap this up? Most times we just go, yeah, and stop talking. Well, they don't know that we finished the question. They're waiting to see, like, is that everything you wanted to say? Do you want to say something else? Are you done? You're restating the question to say, yep, I'm done, and they know that you finished it, and you're wrapping it up. It's a nice little, package there. And you're going to do that every single time you answer a question. Does it seem like it's a long way to answer a question? Absolutely. But what they're going to write down is they're not going to write down this. You think this is what they would write down, because this is great. But guess what? Lots of other people say this exact same thing. They're not going to write that down. You know what they're going to write down? They're going to write down my story about my student Tyler. That's what they're going to write down. Why? Because my example was different from everybody else. I gave an example. I showed you what I can do. And I provided, they're like, okay, yeah, she really does like seeing students succeed. Why? She gave us an example. Now, when they're flipping through my those resumes at the end of the day, trying to figure out who they're gonna bring back for a second interview or who they're gonna hire, they're gonna go, that girl told us about her student, Tyler. Like, that's great. I named him, I gave a specific example. Now they remember who I am. That's what we want. We want to make ourselves memorable when the interview is over. So that is why we have them. So let's go to some examples. We're gonna actually talk about them. So what you have, any questions so far? All right, so what we have here is the top interview questions. It's from a website called glassdoor.com. If you flip to the last couple pages of this packet, there are notes there, so you're welcome to take notes there and write things down. Why do I think it's important for you to know about Glassdoor? Because Glassdoor is a fantastic resource for people who are looking for jobs, and you will revisit that website more than once throughout your career. The reason they do that is all the information there is like user sourced. So it's people who have jobs, who've applied for jobs, they're sharing the information about their job, the company they work for, how much money they work, what it's like. It's almost like a Yelp of like for jobs. So the questions you have there are questions from this year. I think it's 2022 is for the most recent one. They haven't pulled 2023 yet because they usually do it around the end of the year. But those are the questions that people were asked in job interviews, which means you're going, this is what I'm hearing. The other thing reason why Glassdoor is so fantastic is because it lets you know salaries. Because one of those questions is how much do you want to make or what salary do you expect? We never know what to ask, and you don't want to overshoot it. You don't want to say, I want to make $75,000 a year for a job that pays $45,000. They're not going to pay you $75,000. And even if they like you, you're going to be like, but I asked for $75,000, and they're like, we can offer you $47,000. And you go, but I want to make $75,000, and you don't know that in that area in your field, that's not what starting salary is. But Glassdoor will tell you because you can look up things. I worked for a school that specifically trained, I got to do this for sessions for students who were in like medical assisting. And that's great, it's a fantastic career. For a lot of them, it's a good starter point into the medical career, into the medical field. And I would have students who would say they'd go into interviews, and before they did workshops with me, they were saying like, oh, I want to make $20 an hour. I was living in Tennessee at the time, and so I made them look on Glassdoor. I said, I want you to go look on Glassdoor and see how much medical assistants in Nashville, Tennessee are making right now. Go look. And they came back and went, ooh, it's not $20 an hour. I said, no, it's not. The range was between $12 and $15 an hour. So if you ask for $20 an hour, they're not going to hire you because they know you're going to constantly be saying, that's not enough money for me, I want a raise, I'm not happy with my job, because you asked for something that was not possible. The most that those places were paying was $15 an hour, and starting salary was $12. So you come in asking for $20, you're dead in the water. Doesn't matter how amazing you were in that job interview. They are not going to hire you because they cannot pay you $20 an hour. That's just not what they do. So that's why it's important to do that. Look at what it is so that if they ask you how much salary you want, you can say, okay, this is the range. And know that if it's your first time getting into that field, you do not get the top of the range. You just don't. We all have to start somewhere. So if it's your first job or your first time entering that field, because sometimes we switch into new fields, which is totally okay. You should, by the way. Every 3 years, you should be applying for new jobs and moving. It's not like our parents or grandparents who got a job and worked at the same job for 30 years. That's not what you're gonna do. You're gonna take a job that you're gonna work there for 3 years, you're gonna learn as much as you can, get everything you can. At the end of that 3 years, you're gonna apply for more jobs and to look for a different job because you're gonna move so you can learn more skills, make more money, get more responsibility. And usually I say what you're gonna do is you're gonna start with a job you don't hate. That's a really low bar. That's a low bar. I know that sucks. You're like, but I should have a job that brings me fulfillment. You should. But when you're first starting out, that's not what you're waiting for. You want a job that pays your bills and that you don't hate. Because the next job, remember, you're only staying there 3 years. The next job, you're gonna hate a little less, right? And it still needs to pay your bills, but it's gonna pay you more. You're gonna hate it less and it's gonna pay you more. And then you're gonna stay there for 3 years. Learn everything you can, take everything you can from that company. Use all the resources, right? Get better, learn skills, all those things. Figure out more things that you like doing, and then you're gonna get another job 3 years after that you're gonna hate even less. You're like, ooh, I'm starting to like these things, right? You've got more clout underneath it. But when you first start out, you are not gonna get the top of the pay range, and you're not gonna be the person who gets all the flexibility and all the things. You're just not that person yet. So we're gonna get a job that pays our bills, number one. You want something that pays your bills. Do not take something less than that. But then you're going to go, all right, do I not hate this job? And a good opportunity is to start looking at jobs now. Glassdoor is important. It will give you the dirt on companies from people who work there. This is what it's like to work in this company. So you have an idea, you know what you're getting into. So always, always, always check Glassdoor. It will also help you with your interview questions. So let's look through these questions and go through them. And this is where you'll want to take notes, and I want you to think about your answers because these are important things for you to do. So the first question that people always ask is, what are your strengths? You'll see that's number one. In all the years I've been using these, they have been somewhere between, that question has been somewhere between number 1 and number 5. It has never dropped below the top 5. So you can assume that they are going to ask you this question. This is a bragging question. This is where you get to talk about how amazing you are. So when they are asking for your strengths, this question does a few things. One, notice it has an S on it, which means you're going to give them more than one strength. You cannot just say, I am good at this one thing. That does not work. It's strengths plural, so you need to give them multiple things that you are good at. 2, you need to come up with strengths that are unique to you. Not things that you think that they want to hear. So you're not gonna come in and say, I'm a people person, I show up on time to work, and I always do what my boss tells me to do. Okay, one, being a people person, not true, because most of us are not. Like, I love what I do. I'm in the public all the time. I'm a professor, but there are a lot of times when I don't want to people. I just don't. I'm sorry. I'm not a people person 100% of the time. So that ain't in my top, that is not one of my strengths. Honestly, it's just not. There are some people who are, right? Even my husband, I think, is very outgoing. He is an attorney. He was an actor for a professional actor in Hollywood for 17 years, did a lot of work. Like, and I think he really likes people, and he's like, no, I don't want to people either. So I'm not going to give that one because I don't have an example of me being a people person, right? But I'm also not going to say that, I'm not going to say I show up to work on time. Folks, that's not a strength. That's a job requirement. So we're not putting our strengths as job requirements. Also, I'm not going to say I do whatever my boss tells me to do. That's also not a strength. That is a job requirement, right? Showing up on time, doing what your boss tells you to do, not calling out sick all the time. Yeah, those are not strengths, folks. Those are job requirements. So we're not going to brag about job requirements. We're going to look for things that are actual strengths of things that we are good at. Maybe you are excellent at logistics, right? Maybe you're a person who's like, I can do this amazing. My best friend and I opened a business together. We've been running this business together for a number of years. We have a wedding and event planning business. And so when I talk to potential clients, we talk about what our areas of expertise are. My best friend is amazing with design work. That's her area of expertise. So she can design anything. She can make your wedding look spectacular. She will give you all the decor, everything. That's not my area of expertise. What are my strengths in that? I am amazing at logistics. I can make everything work in the time that you want. You come to me and tell me you want to do something at your event, I will make it happen. I know the people who make it happen. I can put the schedule together, and I will make it fit in the time that we have allotted, and it will work spectacularly and run smoothly. I'm always on time and detailed with those things. It's great. That is a strength. That's a unique strength. That's unique to me. That's not what my best friend could say, because that's not her area of expertise. She'll come up with some great design ideas and then ask me to make it work logistically. I'm like, you got it, because we have different areas of strength. My biggest strength is what I do here. I just happen to have been doing that business for years. I started in college and we just keep it going. We just train people to do it. But My area of expertise is honestly public speaking. I've been a professional public speaker forever. I have like 3 or 4 national titles as an individual competitor. I have state titles. I have titles as a coach. I have coached many, many, many national championship teams and competitors. My most recent competitor just won 2nd and 3rd place at nationals this summer. Like, that's an area of expertise for me. So when I'm talking about my strengths, yeah, I'm an excellent public speaker, and I'm going to provide examples, right? I'm going to give you all those examples I just gave. That's a strength for me. So I would challenge you to think about what your actual strengths are. I'm really good with numbers, or I'm really good with, I'm really good with helping figure out things or solve problems. Think about what your actual skills that you are good at, right? Those are important because we want to know those. So come up with them. And if you see something that has an S on it, strengths, weaknesses, you're gonna come up with 3. 3 things that are unique to you, because it's an S on it, right? So these are my strengths, right? I am excellent with logistics. I'm a fantastic public speaker, and I'm really good with designing curriculum and things for students of color. It is literally my area of expertise. I listed those. Remember I said the first thing you're gonna do is answer the question with a 1-sentence statement? That was my 1-sentence statement. Now, for my examples, even though it says strengths S, in the interest of time, I'm going to provide an example for 1 of those 3. I'm not going to provide an example for all 3. Why? We don't have time for all 3. They don't need it. If they want me to elaborate on one of those other 2 that I didn't mention, they can follow up and ask me about one of the other 2. But I'm going to pick 1 of them, and then I'm going to provide an example for 1 of those strengths. Okay? So I'm going to list the 3, and then I'm going to provide an example from work or school or something for that top one that I've picked out of the 3. And then I'm going to wrap it up and say, and that's what I think my strengths are. Okay? You don't need examples for all 3. But this is a sell yourself question. We are going to brag about ourselves. Now, know if there are these brag about yourselves questions, they're only going to ask you 1 of them. They're not going to ask all of them. So there are some that are there. So it says, like this question, what can you offer us that someone else cannot? They're not going to ask this question and the strengths question. You can use the same answer for that. So if you have an answer to the strengths, number 1 here, you can absolutely do this. What can you offer us that someone else cannot? That's your strengths. You're just going to answer it differently. Instead of saying, my strengths are, right? You're going to say, what can I offer you that someone else cannot? Well, I think I can offer you skills in the area of being a person who is good with logistics, right? I think that's something that other people can't do. I know that I'm really good at public speaking, and that's not something that other people can do. And I also really am good at specializing curriculum for students of color. Why is that something you can offer that no one else can? Because those are what you're good at. Remember, we've been really specific with what our answers are. We're thinking about that before we get there. If you don't know what your strengths are, ask somebody who knows you. They will tell you what they think you're good at. Because we don't always see it, but other people will tell us what we're good at. You're like, oh, I am good at that. Now I just got to find an example for it. Same question, right? What you can offer us that someone else cannot, what are your strengths? Going to use the same answer. I'm just going to twist it and change the opening statement for that, right? Because they're not going to ask you both. That's a rookie move, because they're going to give you this. It's the same answer. So those questions are brag about yourself questions, and so if you see them, you can use the same answer. There's a few more that are here. Let's see. Things like describe yourself. Why should we hire you? Those are all brag about yourself questions. Again, use the same answer for your strengths, right? If they say why should we hire you? Same thing. You should hire me because I'm a person who is good with logistics. I love, working with students and seeing them succeed. Or you're a public speaker, right? Same thing. Same exact answers. Use the same thing. Just same stuff. You don't have to reinvent the wheel, right? Let's see. I'm trying to find the other one. That's a brag about things. Okay. Looking for the other one, just in case there's any. Okay, so those are things that if you see anything that's like about, I need to brag about myself, yeah, use your strengths answer. That's the, okay. The what are your weaknesses question is one that everybody hates. It's the least favorite question, and yet they ask it to everybody, okay? Everybody gets asked this question. So you need to know that in the weaknesses thing, the idea behind this is a few things. One, we want to know that you acknowledge that you are not a perfect person. None of us are perfect. We all have things that we are working on. So this question is asking, what are you not perfect at, and what are you doing to fix it? That's hidden in here, right? What are your weaknesses? I don't want you to just tell me how terrible you are. That's not what I'm looking for, right? I want to know what they are. And I honestly want to know what your weaknesses are. Because the other thing I'm looking for in this question is, can I, as a supervisor, manager, person in a leadership position, can I handle those weaknesses that you have? Remember I said, if you get the interview, you're qualified. Now we just want to know if we can work with you. Okay. Example, one of my friends, Marshall has never been on time for work a day in her life, sadly. That woman is at least 30 minutes late for work every single day. She really is. I don't know how she does it. Like, she leaves her house at the time she has to be at work and really thinks she's going to get there on time. It doesn't work. She's late every single day. We laugh about it to this day. Like, literally laughed about it 2 days ago. She's never on time for work. Always 30 minutes late. But what Marshall will do is she's never late in submitting her work on time. All her projects are always completed a day ahead of time or on the day. She's never late in submitting assignments. She will also work through her lunch break and stay late. She just can't get there on time. So when she was looking for an assistant, right, the company gave her, money. It was like, okay, we have it in the budget. You can hire an assistant. So when she's interviewing for an assistant and she wants this weaknesses question, right? So if her assistant says, and her assistant's weakness is, I have trouble getting to work on time. She's still going to tell us how she's going to fix it because that's important. But Marshall hears that and goes, not a problem for me. I don't care. Because what she can handle that. What Marshall cannot handle is people who don't complete their assignments on time. That does not work for her. So if that person said their weakness was time management and they have difficulty completing assignments on time, Marshall can't hire that person. That person doesn't work for her because she is always on time with her deadlines. She never misses a deadline. But she's late for work every day. So if that person said, I have trouble getting to work on time, she'd be like, that's cool, I can take that. That's not a problem. That weakness works for me. But not submitting your projects on time, not okay. I, on the other hand, I don't mind if you're 5 or 10 minutes late. That doesn't, I don't mind if you don't submit your projects on time. I'm a professor. We're used to people not turning in assignments on time, right? That's a problem. It's not okay. And then life gets in the way. You can have an extension. It's okay. But coming consistently late to my class, every single class, and being late for work every single day, nope, that does not work for me. I'm not hiring that person. That doesn't work because that will drive me insane every single day. 5 minutes, maybe, great, fine. But 30, absolutely not. Oh no, I can't do that. That person would not get the job for me. I don't care how amazing you are. You told me that was your weakness. I can't work with you. It will drive me insane. But if you need an extra day to complete a project, that's fine. Because I'm a professor, I'm used to it. So you gotta be honest on the weakness question. You're honest with what the weaknesses are. Remember, it's an S, so you come up with 3 answers for that, right? You're gonna list 3. And they should be actual weaknesses. Do not make up things or do not create things that you think they want to hear. That is bad. That is also the wrong answer, right? So you're gonna come up with those 3, what you are. But in the format, so go back to the format for how you answer the question. So for the weaknesses question, you're going to repeat the question. What are my weaknesses? Thinking, even if you know the answer, because you should, you're like, just kind of recalling what your answer is. You're going to answer with a 1-sentence statement, right? You're going to tell us what the weakness is. My weakness is I have a problem with time management. Okay. Then you're going to provide an example and tell us what you're doing to improve on that weakness. Do not ever leave us with something negative. You do not want to leave the negative thing. So if you say, I have difficulty with time management, for example, I know that I'm a person that gets really caught up in my projects when I'm working on them, and I think I just get really sucked into them, and I want to make sure they're absolutely perfect. And so sometimes that means in my deep dive into them that I miss the deadline. And that's not good for me, as I know I want to make sure I meet those deadlines. But what I'm doing to improve upon this. Now, here's the part that I don't care if you lie about. I would very rarely tell you to lie in a job interview. But for that, you got to put something in there. I don't care if you're not doing anything to work on that. I don't care. If you're in your personal life, I don't care if you are not working on improving your time management skills. I don't give a crap. Lie to me in the interview and tell me that you are doing something to work on that. Come up with a solution. So what's my solution? What I say, what I'm doing to work on that is I've set many deadlines with my boss along the way So that way I'm completing incremental components of the project. So I know that I have to complete this part by this date, and this part by this date, and this part by this date. And I set in my calendar that the due date for the project is 2 days before the actual due date. So not only do I have these little check-ins, I'm setting it so that I can make sure that I work on my project. So even if I'm late by my calendar standards, I'm still on time for what my boss wants me to have.
Question with that. You
Yeah.
guys said weaknesses.
Yes.
And strengths.
Correct.
So more, do you have to actually say more than one?
Yes, that's the thing. Oh, I think you might have missed that. When you see an S, it means more than one.
Okay.
You have to provide more than one. But the rule for that is you provide the 3, because I always say 3 is the one you do. So if you see an S, strengths, weaknesses, you provide 3, but on the example, you only give 1 example.
Good job.
Yeah, you don't give examples for all 3.
Yeah, not like that would be.
It would take forever. Yeah, it would take forever. You don't do that. That's you provide an example for 1. But remember, for the weaknesses question, you're going to tell us what it is in the 1 sentence, give us an example of what it is, but then you're going to tell us what you are doing to improve upon it and fix it. Never leave them with the negative thing, because they're going to walk out going, well, that person has problems with time management. I don't want to hire them. No, I'm working on it. I'm going to be good. I'm going to fix it. Look, I'm working on it. Look how great I am. Okay? There are wrong answers to this question, and I'm going to tell you what your wrong answers are. Okay? Wrong. Yes.
So sorry.
No,
I
go
have
ahead.
to go. I
Go
have
for
a
it.
class right now.
That's fine. Go ahead. You're welcome. Go ahead and go to class. I understand. So on the weaknesses, wrong answers. Wrong answer number 1 is I don't have any weaknesses. And wrong answer. That's not what we want to hear. If you tell me you don't have any weaknesses, that means that 1, you are just completely not aware of yourself. And I don't want to hire an employee who is not aware of themselves, because that means that every evaluation that I have with you, you're not going to be willing to improve. And evaluations don't mean you're bad. It just means we're working on things to be a better employee and improve self. And if you don't think you have any weaknesses, then I'm never going to be successful at that. So I don't want to hire that person, because you just think you're perfect, and none of us are. The other thing that you saying you have no weaknesses is says to me, it says you're lying. And I don't want to hire a person who lies. So we're never going to say I don't have any weaknesses. You're going to have an answer to this question. And a lot of job interviews hinge on how you answer this question, because most people answer this question wrong. So when you nail this question, that's going to automatically put you at the top of the pile for people who should get the job, okay? So the other wrong answer to this question on the weakness question is I'm a perfectionist. And wrong answer. Because remember, I led with perception, right? Remember, that was the first thing I talked about? And if you tell me that you're a perfectionist in your weaknesses, even if that is honestly a weakness for you, it means that you are telling me that. The perception of that is you're telling me this because you know it's a weakness that's not really a weakness. It's a faux weakness. It's a weakness that makes you look good. And wrong answer. I'm looking for actual weaknesses. So you're not going to say you're a perfectionist, even if you are, because being a perfectionist is a strength and a weakness. So you're going to ignore it for both. We're not going to say we're a perfectionist as a strength. We're not going to say we're a perfectionist as a weakness, because most people are not really perfectionists. There are some people who are, but most people are not. And the perception, if you put that as your answer, is that you're lying to me. And you don't want that. So we're not gonna put, I'm a perfectionist as a strength or a weakness, and not doing it, okay? So we're gonna skip that. What you are gonna do though is pick something that is genuine. You're gonna spend as much time thinking about what your weaknesses are and how you could work on improving them as you do thinking about your strengths, okay? Now, this is a question that I say it has a negative connotation. And so they're not going to ask you questions that have a negative connotation more than once. We don't like hearing what people are not good at in job interviews. So we're only going to ask you one of those questions. So once you've come up with your answer for where your weaknesses are, then you can use that answer for multiple other questions. So remember, if they ask one of those other questions, you're like, weaknesses, answer it, right? So what are those things? When you see those questions, they flag you as, negative connotation questions. So what are 3 things your former manager would like you to improve upon? That is a weaknesses question. That's, even if you don't have a former manager, right? You have nobody that told you that you need to work on these things. Even if you did, oftentimes companies are not good at doing reviews and telling you what you need to work on. So you don't have an answer for that anyway. Weaknesses. You're gonna say what are your 3 things your former manager would like you to improve upon? Remember, we came up with 3 weaknesses. My former manager would like me to improve on this, this, and this. List those 3 weaknesses And then give an example of one of them and show how you're working to improve on that. Same answer. You're not going to need to change those. The other thing we're looking at, let's see. This one, tell me how you handle a difficult situation. We're going to talk about this one specifically, but it's a negative connotation question. We are not going to get asked more than one of those. So if you see that one, you can talk about, you can take a weakness and answer it and kind of spin it, but we're going to talk about that question specifically because it's one of the unique ones that's there. What was your biggest failure, right? That one you can branch off from your weaknesses. You can say, give us an example of an example of one of your weaknesses. You can use that for the same one because it doesn't have to be your biggest failure, right? I mean, that's a weird thing. Like, biggest failure? I don't know. You want me to think of what my biggest failure is? Like, can I just give you a failure? We're not going to tell them it's a failure. You're going to use one of your weaknesses and use that as an example, and then talk about how you're working on improving that or what you learned from it, right? Biggest failure is what I learned. Not necessarily. You can just switch the words. What I learned and then how I'm going to improve, okay? All right. So, questions about that one because that's the one that's tricky. Okay. The next one is, why are you interested in working for this company? Why do you want to work here? Now, notice that they're asking you why you want to work for this company. The example I like to use is if you're a person who is into shoes. I'm a sneakerhead, right? I love shoes. I'm not a sneakerhead. I'm just saying, if that's you. I'm not a shoe person. But if you are, and let's say you go and apply to work at the Vans store. So you're you want a holiday seasonal position, you're working there for the summer, whatever, you're going to work for Vans. So they're gonna ask you, why are you interested in working at Vans? Why am I interested in working at Vans? I wanna work at Vans because I love shoes, I'm a sneakerhead. That's not a good enough answer. They asked you about Vans. And if you are a person who wears Vans, you know Vans are very different from Nike or Adidas or New Balance or Tom's. They're not the same. I'm not going to Skechers, right? It's Vans. So I need to know why I want to work for Vans specifically. What is it about this company that I want to do? Go look on their website. Find out who they are. What is their expertise? Go learn something about them so that your answer can be specific. So if I want to say, why am I interested in working for Vans? I would say, I think that Vans is a wonderful lifestyle company with shoes. My very first pair of name brand tennis shoes when I was in 6th grade was a pair of Vans. And I was so proud to be the owner of that. It was an all black pair of Vans. Black laces, black shoe, black soles, and it made me feel great. It's a part of skater culture, and I really think that's a wonderful image, and I love everything it stands for. And that's why I want to work for Vans. That wasn't about sneakers. It was about Vans. So you want to wow them with what you know about the company and why you specifically want to work for them. Do your homework. Have that answer. And that answer is not going to be the same answer for every job. So you need to spend some time before each interview and come up with a different answer for that because it's not the same for every job, okay? This question, some of the questions I'll go through quickly because you don't need to know them. Where do you see yourself in 5 years or 10 years? This is not a question that you're likely to get until you're in a higher level in your company or in your career. So they're not gonna ask you that if you're trying to go work at Vans for the summer. Like that's not what they're looking for. But if you see this question, right, and it asks you this, remember, none of these questions are about your personal life. So they're not asking if in 5 years what your personal life is going to look like. So you should not answer this and say, I see myself married with a couple of kids. Like, no, that's not what we're looking for. This is always business questions. So that even if they ask you that, you are always going to say, here's your answer. I see myself at this company having had opportunities for growth in responsibility and growth in areas of finance. And I really have just enjoyed this, and I think this is a place where I can see myself growing and being long-term. I do not care if it's your summer job at Vans and you are not going to work there. Look, folks, I worked at the Gap for years, right? I loved it. It was one of my first jobs. I enjoyed being at the Gap. My question was, I think Gap Corporate is fantastic. They have really great opportunities for their employees, and it gives you an opportunity to grow. And I really could see myself being a long-term employee here. Y'all, I stopped working at the Gap store my sophomore year of college, of undergrad. I still work for Gap. That was my answer. You're always going to give that answer. Your answer is always seeing yourself in that company, in a leadership role, in some kind of thing. Always, always, always. You are never, ever, ever. The wrong answer to this question is, I want to open my own business. Wrong answer. I do not care if you want to open your own business. Most people do, especially if you're doing some kind of thing. Maybe you do want to start your own business. That's fantastic. There's nothing wrong with opening your own business. But I'm not going to hire the person who tells me in 5 years they want to start their own business and be my competitor. Right? So if that's your goal in 5 years, do not say that in a job interview, because the perception with that is you're going to leave me and be my competitor. I'm not going to keep that employee. I don't want employees that I have to replace because they're going out to be my competitor. Meaning I'm going to teach you everything I know and you're going to take that and use it against me. Nope, not going to happen. Do not put that question. Do not put that as your answer. You will not get hired. And I love that you want to have your own job. Own your business. Please do. I own a business. Yes, it's great. Awesome. But just don't tell them that either, okay? The next question says, why do you want to leave your current company? Really important thing to note here, we are never, ever, ever going to badmouth the current place that we work. They're asking you, why do you want to leave your current job? It is always that you're talking about the great things that you see at this company. You never badmouth the other company, okay? Because if you badmouth them, that means you're going to badmouth me, and I don't want that person. We want somebody who's positive. So if my previous job refused to give me a raise, and they didn't want it, that's why I left, I'm leaving, because they just refused to give me a raise, and they refused to promote me, which honestly is the majority of the reasons why people leave jobs. Or they had a manager that sucked. It's just all of those, right? So if it was because you left because you couldn't get a raise, you're going to say, no, I'm really looking forward to being at a company that provides me opportunities for growth and improvement, and growth by way of promotion, and growth by way of salary. I really am looking forward to that, and I've seen that this is a company that really invests in its employees, and I'm excited about that. Look forward, not back. Not, man, I'm trying to leave because my boss refused to give me a raise, and I've been working there forever, and they keep giving other people promotions, and they're not promoting me, so I'm leaving. Don't tell them that. Don't tell them that, because then they're not going to hire you. We want to keep interviews positive. Looking forward gives you the opportunity to say what you want to, look forward to. So never, ever, ever badmouth anybody in your job interview, ever. Even the question that asks you to badmouth your boss, you're not going to badmouth your boss, okay? The next question says, why was there a gap in your employment? And then they ask this. So there's 2 ways to fix this question. And one, you can make sure you don't get asked it, is on your resume, you're going to put related job experience. That's the first way. So if you put that on or you put like relevant job experience. If they say there was a gap, I see here that you didn't have a job in this part. You're gonna say, you know what? I actually was working at that time. It just was a position that's not relevant to this one, so I didn't list it on my resume. Easy answer. Or you could say, you know what? I was a college student. I went back to school, I got my degree, and that's why I'm here applying for this job, because I now have a new skill set, and I'm really looking forward to utilizing my degree program for that. Also acceptable. But feel free to use the default answer that says, my resume just has relevant job experience. I was absolutely working during that time. Okay. We talked about what you can offer that someone else cannot. We're gonna look back at those strengths, give them real strengths. What are 3 things your former manager would like you to improve upon? We're going to use our weaknesses answer. Remember, they're never going to ask you both. This question, these 2 have moved up. These 2 questions, are you willing to relocate and are you willing to travel? Those 2 questions were always in the bottom of this 50 list for the last, I don't know, I've been using these Glassdoor lists for probably 10 plus years. And those 2 questions have always been in the 40s and 50s, like, 40-ish question. Now they're in the top 10. And the reason for that is COVID. That's why this says post-COVID, because people are not willing to travel anymore and people are not willing to relocate. In fact, most people want to work from home. So moving somewhere for a job doesn't sound great for most people. These 2 questions are the only questions, or some of the few questions that you can answer with a 1-sentence statement and you do not have to provide an example. But you should also be honest. Tell the truth. If you are not willing to relocate, don't put that up here. If you don't want to move, and when they say relocate, they're not asking you if you want to move from LA County to Orange County. That's not relocating. Relocating means we have an office in Wisconsin. Are you willing to relocate to Wisconsin for this job? Because if you say yes in your interview, even if they don't ask you to relocate right now, maybe a year into the position, they're going to be like, we're relocating you to Kansas. You're like, but I don't want to move to Kansas. But you told us you would relocate. That's why we hired you. We've only been training you to run our Kansas office. Tell the truth. So am I willing to relocate? Me personally, unfortunately at this moment, I'm not willing to relocate. I really enjoy being in Southern California. It's where my husband and my family are, and I'm just not willing to uproot my family at this time and move to a different location. That's valid. As an honest answer, I can't relocate for whatever reason. No, I'm not. The next one is, are you willing to travel? When they ask you this, again, they're not asking you if you're willing to travel from LA County to Orange County. They're asking you if you're gonna get on a plane and fly somewhere, if you're willing to drive multiple hours and distances, right? Because if they ask you this, that means the job involves travel. So if you are willing to travel, yes, absolutely. Tell them, absolutely. I enjoy traveling. I love it. I've been a business traveler for many, many years. I'm very used to it. It's something I would excel in. Yes, I'm willing to travel. Me personally, that's my answer. Yes, I'm willing to travel. I've gotten used to it. I've coached a speech and debate team. We travel all the time. We go to tournaments everywhere. So I'm used to traveling. Plus, personally, I do. I'm an Army brat. I kind of spent my entire life on airplanes. So I don't mind traveling. I'm used to it. Some people, not used to it, right? Some people, this is not for them. So if you're not willing to travel, say, unfortunately, I'm unwilling. I'm not able to travel at this point because of where I am in my life or a family or whatever. Just say, I'm unwilling to travel. You can just say, no, I'm not. And you don't have to provide an answer. Know that means you're probably not going to get the job done. But that's okay. Just acknowledge that, right? No, be honest about those. Because if it's a job that requires you to travel and you don't want to travel, you don't want that job. That's not the job for you. And if they tell me the only way I can get this job is if I move to Kansas, that's not the job for me either. In interviews, you are interviewing them just like they're interviewing you. It goes both ways. So they're interviewing you to see if they want to hire you. You should be interviewing them in the sense like, do I really want this job? There have been jobs I've turned down because of the interview. And I went, this is not the job for me. So if they ask you those two questions and your answer is no, this is not the job for you. You can find something else. Okay? Tell me about an accomplishment you are most proud of. This is a really great question, and this is one of the few places I would allow a little bit of personal information into your answer. And that's because for a lot of us, the accomplishments that you are most proud of are things that have some personal things. A lot of people say, like, I was the first person in my family to graduate from college. That's fantastic. You should absolutely be proud of that accomplishment. Yes, please tell us that, okay? Mine would be, I think mine for that was probably my answer up until, more recently when what am I most proud of now? Well, I'm really proud that I'm one of the nation's leaders of developing curriculum in public speaking for students of color. I'm very proud of that. It's revolutionary. I walk in and talk to people about that and they go, what? Why are you changing the way this is done? Well, because my students don't look like the model of who people used to be for public speaking. And I want to make sure that my students are able to excel. So that's why I'm very proud of that. But until then, it was that I was the first person in my family to graduate from undergrad and to get an advanced degree and get, a master's degree. But because I did that, everybody else had the chance to do it after me. It showed them that it was possible. I'm very proud of that. And now I have people in my family cousins who have graduated from college and gone on to get a master's degree. I've got one cousin who's working on her doctorate right now. It makes me so proud that because I did it first, they saw that they could do it. Yeah, that's something you'd be proud of, absolutely, right? And I do talk about family, but I didn't give too many details and just a little bit, right? Tell me about a time you made a mistake. This is one of those negative connotation questions. So they're not gonna ask you this with weaknesses, they should not. But you're gonna think about a time you made a mistake. One at work, not your personal life, not like I should have never broke up with that girlfriend of mine. Nope, we're not worried about that. Give me a job example. And if you don't have one, use something in school. What was a mistake you did? Remember, with negative connotations, we are never, ever, ever going to leave them with something bad about us. So when you talk about the mistake that you made, you're gonna tell us what you learned from it and how you improved. So, the time I made a mistake, I did, I had this assignment in my class and my professor said I needed to do it early and get it in, and then I missed the deadline completely. My professor was nice and let me turn it in late, and I still missed the deadline. And you know what? I ended up failing that class. That was a mistake. I regret that tremendously. But what did I learn? I learned that it made me better at time management, right? It taught me that, okay, there are consequences to the things that I do, and now I can improve and be better. Yeah, that's a mistake. Tell me how you fix it, and that's a mistake. That's a mistake I made. Always leave them with what you learned or how you're improving. We're never, ever, ever going to leave them with the bad thing. What is your dream job? This is a really fantastic question, and I love it because this gives you a chance to come up with a really creative answer. And this answer is going to be different for every job that you apply for. And And I'm gonna tell you why. Because in your dream job, remember, we're never gonna tell them that we're gonna start our own business. So even if that's your dream job, we're not telling them that. So we're not doing that. And you're also going to say that your dream job has something to do with this job. But I'm never gonna say that this job is my dream job. Not unless you're here. Like me, working at DH, this is my dream job. I love it, right? The only thing I would really leave this campus for is if I got to host a travel show, because I just love doing that. But I still wouldn't have to leave, because I can do it in summers when I'm not teaching, right? So, but when you look at the dream job question, what you're going to do is look at the components of that job. So what are the requirements or the components of that job that match up with the things that you want in your dream job? So I'm never gonna say my dream job is this company, because man, that's probably a lie. And I know you're lying to me if you tell me your dream job is here. Unless, you know, and even I didn't know that being at DH was gonna be my dream position until I got here, right? I love teaching, but I love this school particularly. And I've taught at a number of schools, and they have not been the same. So you're gonna look at it and look at what those requirements are. So my example for the gap, right? You know, my dream job would allow me the opportunity to interact with people. And my dream job would also allow me the opportunity to have some kind of public speaking component, because I love being able to have that. I'm really good at public speaking. And, you know, pie in the sky, if it did, it would allow me the opportunity to travel if I could, right? And I see all of those things in this position. I see that it allows me to interact with people every single day. It's a job that I have to constantly help customers and be assisting people. That's great. I also see that it gives me the opportunity to be a public speaker, because I do have to talk to people all the time. It's a fantastic way to utilize those skills that I've been, you know, that I'm an expert at. And, you know, if it allowed me the opportunity to travel, that would be great. And I know that there are opportunities to travel, to learn, and be a part of corporate, you know, and that would be a really great thing for me. And that's what my dream job would be. I never said my dream job was working at the Gap. Didn't at all. I was very creative. But this answer changes depending on where you're applying for, because that's my answer for the Gap. That was not my answer for DH, right? They asked me what my dream job was. Be like, I'd love to work with students of color, and I'd love to be able to, you know, develop curriculum and have the opportunity to be in all three departments that we have, right? Theater, speech, and dance. I love all three of those. Those are my areas that I teach in. It'd be fantastic to be here. That is my dream job. It's great, right? So be honest, but get creative. Don't ever tell them that's your dream job, unless it actually is. If working for Google is your dream job, great, fantastic, tell them. How did you hear about this position? This one doesn't have to require it. You do not need the standard question format for this, or the answer format. Just tell them how you heard about it. I found it on Indeed, or a friend of mine works here and told me that the position was available. Great, that's how you're gonna do that. You're not gonna worry about that. What would you look to accomplish in the first 30, 60, or 90 days on the job? This is a question you are not going to get asked unless you are a person who is coming into upper division position in the company, you're in a management position. You don't really need to worry about this answer too much when you get there, but you do want to talk about like your goals, right? And you can use an example from goals you had at a previous company or things you accomplished there and what you want to do. You do not need to worry about this question for a very long time. That won't happen, because if you're working at, you know, Subway, they're not going to ask you what you want to accomplish in the first 30 days at Subway. I'm just going to come to work and make sandwiches, right? Don't need that. Discuss your resume. This is a brag about yourself question. So you can talk about your strengths, you can talk about your weaknesses, right? Well, I wouldn't say weaknesses, but talk about your strengths, right? Brag about yourself. Pick out some things on your resume. You want to highlight education and highlight jobs that you think are directly related and how well you did at them. If you have an opportunity to discuss things that were like accomplished at that job, right? So, you know, if I were talking about my resume here at DH, I would say, you know, one of the things that I was able to do while I was at Dominguez Hills was I was able to redesign the public speaking curriculum for students of color. I was also able to create an online format of the class, which we did not have when I arrived. I also had the opportunity to provide a zero cost and free textbook for all of our speech curriculum courses, and that was really huge for me. And I think that was, you know, that really highlighted that time there. Those are clear deliverables that they can see and that they might want to ask me about later on. So that's what I would talk about in my resume. I don't need to just say like, oh, I worked at this place, I worked at this place. They're looking for something more than that. Give them some insight into what you achieved at each one of those places. Okay. Educational background, same thing. I got my degree from Dominguez Hills and here, and I loved being at that university because the professors let us learn hands-on, they were helpful, whatever. That's all you gotta do. That's a really easy one. You don't even have to give us examples, you just describe it. Describe yourself. Please brag about yourself. Remember, this is not a personal question. This is about your work history. So you're going to talk about, if they ask you this, describe yourself, you should not get these two questions before. So in describing yourself, you're going to talk about education, you're going to talk about job experience, you're going to talk about what your career goals are, things like that. That's what you're going to look for. Okay. This difficult situation question. This is one of the few things I tell you to lie about. Okay, and I'm going to tell you why. Because in a difficult situation, you're going to tell us the best way that you solved it. Because remember, you got to solve it, you got to come out, and the answer needs to be something positive, right? Because we don't want to give them a negative one. So in this difficult situation, you're going to make yourself look really great. Like, this was difficult. I dealt with an angry, there's another question that says, how would you deal with an angry or irate customer? You can use an example that you've come up with as if that's your difficult situation. You dealt with a customer who was angry and, not satisfied. So, time I dealt with a difficult situation was, I was working at the Gap, and there was a customer who came in and they needed to return some clothing, but it was past the date and they didn't have receipts or tags, and it wasn't a good situation. And so, I talked to the customer and I said, you know what, I understand how difficult this is. I get it. This is our policy, and unfortunately it's beyond there. And they were still unhappy. And I said, how would you like me to solve this? So how would you like me to solve this problem? Because it's a good way to handle with difficult customers. And they said, I want my money back. I said, unfortunately, that's not our policy. That's not what we can do. Would you like to speak to a manager or someone in a supervisory position to see what they can do? Maybe they might be able to find a solution that works for you. Yes, I want to talk to your manager. Absolutely. Totally okay to say you handled a difficult situation by passing it on to somebody else who could do it. I'm on the bottom of the totem pole here, folks. That's outside my pay range. I'm not there. I did what I could. It didn't fix it. Talk to the boss. That's valid. You know what that says? That says that you're a person who wants to fix problems. You show that you know the process, but it also says you trust that your boss is going to be able to fix it. I'm going to go to my boss. Awesome. We want that person, right? Why should we hire you? We've talked about this one. This is the same as why we want to work for that company, or brag about yourself. I'm great because of this. We're going to deal with that. Why are you looking for a new job is the same as the question of why are you leaving your current job? Why are you leaving your current company? Same answer. So if you came up with an answer for that one, use it for this one, okay? Would you work holidays and weekends? This is not one that you have to answer in the format. You're just gonna answer it honestly. No. Or yes, right? Know that if they're asking you that, that means they want you to work holidays and weekends. So if you're not available to work holidays and weekends, you need to tell them, because that's not the job for you and you're not the right employee for them. But know that things like retail, food service, amusement parks, things like that, they are expecting you to work on holidays and weekends. If you get hired at Disneyland, you're working on Christmas. You're working every weekend, you're working on Christmas. If you don't want to do that, don't get hired. Don't apply for a job at Disneyland, because they're open 365 days a year. That's going to be policy, right? If you're applying to work for like UPS or the Postal Service, you got to work weekends. It's just part of the job. So know what those requirements are. Look on Glassdoor before. Also remember, if they're asking you for holidays and weekends, that means they're going to make you work them. So if you're not available, say no. Please say no. Right? We just talked about the angry or irate customer. That one, you could use the same answer as you did with the difficult situation. What are your salary requirements? This is one of those reasons why you're going to check on Glassdoor and find out what the range is. And you're going to create a range for you that fits for this job. And you're not going to put the lowest range, the end of that range, the bottom of that range is not going to be the minimum amount of money you need to make. So if you need to make $22 an hour, right? You've done your math, that's how much money I need to make. My range is not going to be $22 to $32 an hour. My range is going to be $23 to $32 an hour. And that's a range that fits with what this job says on Glassdoor it can be. And even if they give me the bottom of that range, which they are likely to do, they're like, well, we put it in your range. Great. You're still making $1 more than what you need. And if for some reason they offer you 22, you can ask for 23 and say, and if they don't, then 22 was what you needed to make anyway. Okay. Don't ever give the bottom of your range to be lower than what you need for your bills. Always give it a little bit. This one, give me a time when you went above and beyond the requirements for a project. This is a question that you really need to think about, because going above and beyond for a project is not, my boss asked me to stay late, so I stayed late. That's not above and beyond. This needs to show that you went well beyond the requirements, well beyond what your boss asked. So this would be if you're using a school example, which a lot of students have to do. They would say, you know, I had an assignment in my class and I only had to do these 3 things. But I actually loved doing this project so much that I went beyond that. And I included these 5 things. And I know I was only supposed to do a quick presentation, but I made a presentation and a booklet and a video because I just really enjoyed that. And it went beyond the requirements of the project because it was something I really enjoyed doing, and I wanted to show the professor that I really liked that. This was an opportunity for me to show them that I could be their research assistant or something. So I went above and beyond. It was really important. So that's what you're looking for. The key here is above and beyond.